With the intention of making my code available to you, I decided to work in the cloud. I will be working in CodeSandbox. You can find a link to the code in the description below. If you do like this idea, click the like button and share your thoughts with me in the comments below. I am now in CodeSandbox as mentioned, and I have opened a fresh React template. If you look at the dependencies pane, we can see that we have 3 required dependencies for this project. To work with the React Router DOM hooks, we need to add that new dependency. I will click the Add Dependency button and search for React Router DOM. And the first result is the one that we want. I clicked that dependency and now it appears in the dependencies pane. Let's start by opening the index.js file and importing the browser router component. Browser router from React Router DOM. Then I will wrap the app component with browser router and that will give all of the underlying components access to the browser's history. I will be showing the use of the 4 hooks that React Router DOM has available to us: useHistory, useLocation, useParams, and useRouteMatch. I'll go in order and start with useHistory. I will open the app.js file and use the editor's IntelliSense to auto-import useHistory. And then I'll run useHistory in line 6, and I'll save the return value in a constant called history. And I'll start by logging the history object so that we can see it. Awesome! React Router DOM makes it that simple to have access to the history object in our components. We just wrapped the app component with browser router, and then we logged the history object using useHistory. So what can we do with the history object? With it, we can navigate to different pages by adding links. We can know where we are in relation to the URL, like say we are in the About page. We can go back to where we were before with, for example, a back button, and many more. Let me know in the comments below if you have some interesting use cases. Let's use the history object to navigate to a new page. I will add a button after the h2 tag with the text to About, and add a click handler called handle click. Then when the user clicks the button, we will do history.push/about. And I forgot to declare this as a constant. Now that button changes the URL to have the /about route. To complete that work, let's add that route. I'll open the index.js file and bring the route and switch components from React Router DOM. I will remove the app component for a moment. I will add the switch component and inside of it I'll add the base route as a self-closing tag. It will point to the base URL by adding the path property and we'll render the component app. We have our landing page back. I'll add a second route that goes to the About page and presents an inline component that renders a h1 tag with the text about page. You can see that if I click the To About button, even though it changes the route, it doesn't take us to the About page. I explained that behavior in another video that you can watch by clicking in the suggested video above. For this video, let's just say that we need to specify in our base route that the match for it needs to be exact. Now we navigate to the About page. Navigation is our use case for that first hook, useHistory. Now let's talk about useLocation. The use case that we will look at for useLocation is we want to have a button that will take us back to the landing page, but it should only appear if we are in the About page. Let's start. Any component that is outside of the switch component will appear in the application always. A good example of something like that is a header component. I'll start by creating a header component in line 9 that will render a div with the text I am header. Now I'll add that header component before the switch, and there we have it. If I am in the landing page, it will be there, and if I navigate to the About page, it will be there as well. Now I'll bring the useLocation hook by typing useLocation, and using the auto import feature, I will run it and store the value in a location constant. Let's quickly log what we have in the location object. We have 4 properties, and the one that we will use is the path name, which lets us know where we are. So our logic is, if we are in the /about page, show a button, otherwise we won't. And since we are good developers and we like best practices, I'll add a constant called @about page. And what does it mean to be at the About page? It means that the location.pathname equals /about. Now I'll say that if we are at About page, we'll return a button that says back. Now we see that back button. Of course, it does nothing. We will use the useHistory hook again to go back. I will pull useHistory with the auto import like before. Run it and cache it in a constant called history. If you saw the page jump right there, it's because I'm using the prettify feature that the IDE has by clicking Shift-Alt-F. That cleans the code for us. I'll add a click handler to the button, and this time I will call it handle back click. I'll declare that in line 19. And we will use the history object like before, but this time we'll use the go back function, which will just go back one entry in the browser's history. So when the user clicks the back button, we'll say history.goback. And that's it. If we go to the About page and then click the back button, it takes us back. That was useLocation. Next is useParams. Parameters are used for things that are dynamic, like IDs. For instance, if we had a list of books and we clicked one, that could take us to the About page for that specific book. To add parameters to a route, we just need to add a colon and then the name we want to give to our parameter. I'll call it name. But I don't want the parameter to be appended to About, so I'll add a slash between them. Let's update the button in the app component to have parameters. Instead of just pushing to About, I'll change the string to be a templating string, and it will push to About slash, and I'll add a variable name that the handleClick function will accept. I have to change the onClick handler a little to be an arrow function that runs our handler passing a name. And the name will be Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We can see right away that affected our button to go back, because now the route is not just /about. We can fix that by going back to the header and changing the @about page definition to be location path name dot includes about. And we have our button back. So now what? We click the About page and we see that the URL includes the Rich Dad Poor Dad name. Let's clean a little by creating a new file called about.js. We will import React from React and declare our about function here. We will return the same as before. And finally, we have to import about from about. Then let's pass that component to our route. And perfect. Everything seems to be running fine. I will go to the about file and bring in the useParams hook. Let's log the params, and we see our Rich Dad Poor Dad name. So now we can simply do something like params.name. Another option would be to just grab the name by destructuring. And now we present our component depending on the params. To prove the concept a bit further, I'll change the text of the button to include that name. I'll declare a Rich Dad title constant with that name, and I will pass it to the handleClick function, as well as to the button text. Then I'll add a second button, but I'll declare a new title. I will call it the Richest, and it will be for the richest man in Babylon. I'll change that in the second button. And now let's try it. I'll go to the base route And now we have our 2 buttons. If you are liking the video so far, click the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. If I click the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it takes me to the About Rich Dad page. And if I click the Richest Man, then it takes me to the richest man in Babylon. That was useParams, and we have just one hook left, useRouteMatch. useRouteMatch might be less common, but it can be extremely useful. Let's bring it in the About component and log it. We can see that it gives us access to some properties that we have already seen before, like the params. But let's think about a use case for this one. We are in the About page, and it shows a title that is dynamic. But if we wanted to render a Buy Now button only if we are looking at the richest man in Babylon, how would we know if we are there? There are many ways to go about doing so. However, let's try using useRouteMatch. I'll pass a string to the useRouteMatch hook with the exact path that I'm interested in. And then I can say show by button if we have a match and the match is exact. Let's add that button to the UI. I'll add a React fragment since we are going to have 2 tags without a parent. And below the h1 tag, I'll add that Buy Now button. I'll include the show by button logic if show by button, then return the button. Let's go to the base URL. I'll click Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and we don't have a buy button. I go to the richest man in Babylon, and we have a buy button. If you like that use case, don't forget to click the like button. I'll leave a link to the code in the description below. And if you found this video useful, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching and see you next time.